Hey everyone, I'm really happy to be here today. Thank you so much for having me. So first of all, disclaimer, everything that I'm going to be speaking about is based on my experience as a musician. And like every life experience, my experience is unique, and someone else might have gone through the same life path that I had and come up with completely different conclusions. So my advice to you, before listening to what I have to say, is that if what I say works for you and resonates with you and makes you feel empowered and connected and like you have a really straight course forward, then go with it. Go with what I say. But if something I say doesn't feel right, then that's a signal from you that that it's not sitting right, and that might be because I wasn't clear, or I explained things in a way that maybe the opposite intention of what I meant came across. But if something doesn't feel right, wrestle with it. Ask me questions. Ask someone else questions. And usually when one does that is that you will come to your own version of your truth. And I mean, as you'll see at the end of what I'm going to be speaking about, is that your truth as a musician is everything. That's literally what's going to make or break your life as a musician, whether or not you choose to be a musician as a career path or just a musician in life playing in various settings for the rest of your life. But really, really knowing yourself and knowing your soul and knowing how things fit within you, that's really, really important. So when I'm speaking, I'm going to be speaking as a cellist. I played a cello. I've been playing since I was about 5 years old. Very, very serious for most of my life, a bit of a child prodigy. Playing the cello is not what I do right now as my career. I actually own a business. It's an e-commerce business. I have 10 people working for me. It's really awesome. It's kind of weird that I ended up getting my degree in music and now that I'm doing this, but I still play the cello, and everything that I learned as a musician is actually helps me shape how I am as a boss and a business person, and I'll touch a bit on that later. So as a cellist, I played in an orchestra whenever I was playing in a big group setting. So if you hear me referring to an orchestra and you are a wind player or a brass player and you're going to be playing in a band, just know that when I say orchestra, I mean band. And so basically orchestra for me means big group setting, 50 plus people playing together. Okay, so you probably know by now that there are various types of performances and settings that a musician can play in, and I've done my best to divide it into 4 categories, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how the mental preparation and I guess like the practical preparation that goes into each category. So the first category one might have in terms of a piece of music or playing is as a soloist by oneself. So that's literally you in the middle of the stage by yourself, playing by yourself. There's no backtrack, there's no one playing with you, there's no collaboration, it's basically you. The second one is as a soloist with an orchestra, like as a soloist sitting in front of the orchestra with, let's say, a big group behind you. Or I'm actually going to put a chamber musician, a small group setting. This is in the same category. I actually really very much think of being a soloist as being a soloist in front of an orchestra as being similar to being a chamber musician, like in a group of 3 or 4 people. Some people may disagree with me. It's definitely a different personality type that would, like, let's say, want to be a soloist in front of an orchestra versus a chamber musician. But the techniques used and are very, very similar. And again, disagree with me if you want, but this has certainly been very true for me. And actually, like, coming to this realization has really improved my playing as both a soloist and a chamber musician. The third one is as a team leader. So if you are, let's say, in a cello, if you're playing in a cello section, you have like, let's say 8 plus cellists in that section and you are sitting as the principal. So if you are in an orchestra or band and you are the leader of your section, that is another category. And then the last category is being what I call a team member. So there's team leader and then team member. If you are a part of that instrument section, how to collaborate, how to communicate, how to work well, how to follow the leader, but also contribute your essential part to that team. So those are my 4 categories: soloist alone, soloist with an orchestra or chamber music, team leader, and team member. So the first one I'm going to talk about briefly is being a soloist alone. When one is a soloist alone, that is basically you on the stage, and all the work and everything that you've done to go into this moment is just right there. But you have a lot of freedom when you are a soloist by yourself. If you want to slow down in a section, you can slow down. If you want to take something a little bit faster, you can take something a little faster. If you want to just take a little break in between, and you don't have to talk to anyone or do anything. I mean, yes, you do have a relationship with a couple of forces, but there is no relationship between you and any other musicians on that stage. The relationships that you do have as a soloist by yourself is between you and the composer. You do have that relationship between yourself and the composer. And if the composer is no longer alive, that's one kind of relationship. But if the composer is alive, and let's say even in the audience, there's that relationship there that you are working almost like as a vessel to communicate what the composer is trying to communicate. So you are definitely in collaboration with the composer. You are also in a relationship / collaboration with the audience. And I think that there are different kinds of performances. There's some performances when, let's say, you are showing the audience something private, something almost intimate, something that they are getting a window into what you are showing them. So that's more of an introverted performance, as I would say. It's like you're playing and they are getting to see something, and you're communicating with something about their inner world to them. So they are feeling something inward, and you are expressing something inward. Then there's the kind of performance that I see as being more extroverted. It's more about your relationship with the audience, and you're playing out to them. You are excited, you are engaging with them. It's like really a very big act of giving. And like the audience, hopefully, if you are doing your job well, will be so on the edge of their seats. It's like a roller coaster. You're giving to them. They are enjoying and giving to you. And there's like almost like this cyclical relationship. So depending on the type of piece of music you're playing, and this goes for all categories, I do tend to think of different kinds of music or different sections of music as either more inward or outward. So that's something to really think about. So that's being a soloist by yourself. Now, the next category is being a soloist with an orchestra, like sitting in front of an orchestra, like the video that you just saw of me playing in front of an orchestra, or being a chamber musician, and a chamber musician is playing in a small group. And the reason why I see these as being really, really similar or the same category is because both of them involve a level of being a soloist, aka by yourself. You are a leader, people are following you. It's basically your way or the highway. You are just the soloist, and people are just going to be plucking or playing nicely beneath you. And there's other sections when you are going to be the follower, when someone else has the solo, when the orchestra is playing behind you, and either you're playing, the bass line with them. And it's a very collaborative relationship. You really have to know when to speak out and when to follow. And it's a really beautiful relationship, especially if you are a soloist and there's a conductor who's like conducting the orchestra, that you are communicating with the conductor, you are communicating with the instrumentalists behind you. You are basically leading a giant group, but it's in collaboration. And the same thing with chamber music is that you are really actively contributing to that whole. And sometimes that contribution means being a soloist, like playing the melody, and sometimes it means being a support. So that's soloist / chamber musician. The next one is being a team leader. A team leader meaning that you are the leader of your instrument section. And that is such an important role and job. I could probably give an entire class on this. Again, in this entire class that I'm giving, I'm going to be touching on some things. Everything is its own class unto itself, its own discussion. People have written books on every single subject I've talked about. So I'm just going to be giving you a little bit of a taste. So being a team leader is really important. You have to be so clear. Often you will see the team leader, if you're watching, let's say, an orchestra or band, they will be much more extroverted in their gestures. They will, when they're going to be starting, they're going to go And like if they're going to be plucking, let's say like when I pluck, they're going to be like, you know, really like showing the rest of their team where it's coming. If they are playing an instrument, they're going to be really leading, and being very clear about your movements and your intention is really what makes or break whether or not your team is going to be with you. Because the whole idea of having multiple instruments playing the same line is that you are, you know, all small parts of a big whole. Your sound is going to be much larger, and the leader is really essential, that like the whole team basically follows the leader. So the leader has to be so clear. If you have just like for us, like with string instruments, like let's say we have which way our bow moves, so that has to be communicated to the team, or which fingering you're doing, so your fingers are moving at the same time, so that has to be communicated with the team. With wind instruments, often taking a breath at the same time, or just the phrasing is going to be really, really essential that the team leader communicates. And usually the conductor might have a say about it, but often the conductor will, if you're doing your job well, the conductor will just be like, great job guys, now I'm not even going to worry about it. So your job as a team leader is really, really to make sure that you are communicating with your team really, really well. And just 1 second, I'm going to make sure something is turned off that is making a noise. This is basically like a live class. Okay, last category is that of being a team member, and this is so essential. Being a team member for me is it's just as much of an art as being a soloist. Yes, it is less exposed. Like if you play a wrong note, a little bit off, no one's gonna know, right? Could be the guy beside you. But knowing how to blend one's sound and really contribute one's sound is so, so essential. You are kind of, your individual voice is blending with everyone else's individual voice to create this whole like giant like force of sound. And that's beautiful. You don't want to stick out in that voice, but you also have to make sure you're contributing and not hiding. If you ever see really amazing professional bands and orchestras, you'll see that everyone is playing their heart out, but yet they know how to play their hearts out in a way that doesn't make them stick out of the group, that it's basically being part of one giant whole. Whole as in like not like a hole, but like WHOLE. Okay. Next topic I'm going to talk about, that's basically like this first topic was just different roles one can have as a musician. The next topic I'm going to talk about is preparation. And I've once again have two categories of preparation. And the first one is for a concert. And the second one is for some sort of test. A test might be an audition, adjudication, exam, something like that. And I think those are quite different from doing a concert. Tests are not fun. I'm just going to put that out there. They can be funner, but it's one of those necessary evils of being a musician. You know, you do need to be evaluated. You do need to audition. These are things that you have to do. And I'm going to give you some advice on how to make it a more pleasant experience. But I want you to keep in mind that doing those tests, like that is not the purpose of being a musician. A concert is like, that's really, really your work as a musician. A test, you know, figure it out, get it done. It's like paying your taxes. I don't know if anyone really has fun paying their taxes. You guys don't have to pay taxes, but you will. Not fun, but you can get good at doing it, and it can be as painless as possible. So that is what I'm going to be giving you my advice on how to make the tests as painless as possible. So first of all, having some sort of ritual before the big day, and this goes for concerts and tests, like having a ritual is essential. And this only can come from trying different methods. I know so many musicians that have different, even opposing methods of how to prepare. Some musicians want to play the whole concert or the whole audition through like 10 times the day of before they do it at night. Other people won't touch their instrument at all, and they will go out for a hike or something like that. Some will do something in between. So if I were you, I would try different methods of preparation in terms of how much you're playing your instrument. Obviously, for wind players, there's a certain amount of time that you can play before you get tired. This is the same for string musicians as well, but we can generally play longer without getting tired. So get to know yourself, get to know Does it make you feel better to play through the entire thing in the morning? Cool. Does it make you more nervous and you're better off distracting yourself? Also cool. Just figure out what works for you. Also, please take care of your diet. Eating like stuff that makes your blood sugar go crazy, definitely not a good idea. Some musicians will eat things that are high in tryptophan, which is a calming chemical, like bananas and turkey, which can help calm down your nervous system if you are very, very nervous. Other people find that makes them sleepy, and you don't want to be sleepy on stage. So those are some methods I've heard of. And yeah, so eat well, sleep well, meditate, have a mantra that you repeat. But here is some advice that I have for once you get actually on the stage. There is going to be a mistake. Someone is going to make a mistake. Might be you, might be someone else. You are a human, you are not a robot. People are coming to listen to you because you are a human. People don't go listen to robots play music. They come to hear humans express humanity and connection. That's why they're here to hear you play. Again, I've had maybe I can count on one hand concerts that didn't have mistakes. And even then, there was still maybe a slight mistake that, in my mind was a mistake, but maybe the audience wouldn't have known that was a mistake. A mistake is going to happen, and it's okay. What's really, really important is what happens after that mistake. If you make a tiny little mistake and you fixate on a mistake, and therefore everything after that is just robotic and kind of blah, or you make even more mistakes because you're thrown off, that's actually really going to make or break whether or not it's, let's say, a good performance or not. Once you make the mistake, my advice and the advice that I've been given as a musician is say, okay, there's your first mistake. There it goes. I'm going to keep focusing on what I'm going to do. Keep focusing on what I'm expressing, what I'm doing. And it's almost, for me, it's almost a relief when that first mistake happens, because it's up until then, everything was perfect. Okay, here's the first mistake. Now I'm going to keep going. Now I can really, the mistake happened. It's back there, and I don't have to worry about when it's going to happen. It happened. Now let's really get into it. So just really get your focus back after a mistake. A mistake, it's okay. You're a human. You're supposed to be human. People are listening to you because you are a human. Okay. Another thing I'd like to talk about is anxiety, or as I like to call it, excitement. But many of us feel anxiety both before going on stage and on stage. Now, I want to just say one thing, is that anxiety means that you care. If you didn't care, you would not be worried or feeling anxious. So really, in that light, anxiety is a good thing. Caring is a good thing. And once you kind of reframe anxiety as oh, I'm anxious because I care. I love music. I want to play and express things well. I want my audience to have an enjoyable experience. Then that's a good thing. That means you're a good person. And that means that you take your job seriously. That is really, really good. So in that light, I'd like you to just really think about anxiety as caring. And with all that, and with all the nervous energy, just try to change that nervous energy into excitement. So the feeling of anxiety is that you care and you're excited. That's it. That's great. You should care and you should be excited, because being a musician is awesome and playing for people is awesome, and you want to do a good job. It's really interesting that as a musician, we practice for hours and hours and hours and days and hours and hours in our house. And then when we get on stage, it's literally minutes that we are on stage performing. Hours went into preparing for what I'm going to, do in a couple of minutes. And I only have one shot to do it right, whereas I had hours and hours to practice. So that's a lot of pressure. And that is an art. It's not something, for some people, it comes more naturally. But just know that that's a really, really big deal. And it's interesting to think about that in the end, you have to let go of all those hours and just get on stage and say, okay, I'm going to really, really do my best. And I'm going to be an active participant in this performance. But in the end, it's just a performance, right? You're going to do your absolute best. Hope your audience has a good time. I hope you have a good time. But it is just minutes. And it's just it's a beautiful thing that you have created a moment in time for your audience. And when you're done, you're done. You're going to work on the next thing. So I'd like you to really also think about your instrument acting as a vehicle to express your inner world. Because when you express your inner world, you actually are helping your audience access their own inner world. And I heard it put so beautifully once that musicians act as doctors for the soul. So, doctors, medical doctors are helping physical ailments and, revealing and testing, and, it's very, very important work, of course. But musicians and artists, we are helping people come to terms with themselves. You don't know what your audience members are going through. Maybe they've gone through a loss. Maybe they're grieving. Maybe the best thing ever happened that day. Like anything. Maybe they're missing someone. Anything or maybe they're going through some sort of trauma, right? And your job as a musician is to allow them that portal to really go within themselves and access who they are, whatever that may be, and to give them that safe space to do so. So really it's, your work is important. This is not just a vanity project of, oh, I love music, I'm going to play, it's fun. Like, it is fun, it's awesome. But you are also a really important emissary. Like, you are the vehicle that is going to allow your audience to experience themselves and their own souls and whatever they need to go through. So just remember that if you ever have any doubts as to whether or not your job is important. Like, we all know based on the music that we listen to and that we have access to, that it changes us. Like, it helps us, become the best possible human beings. So that is your job. Okay. So to end off, I've been speaking for 21 minutes now. You don't need to become a professional musician. It is great if you want to become a professional musician, and there are so many ways to go into that career path, and it's a beautiful career path. But, and I'm sure you can learn more about that. Go on YouTube. I'm happy to give you some resources if you need it. But if you do not want to become a professional musician, or you decide against it, it's really, really so important. All the work that you're doing now as a music student, all of that is going to spill over into other areas of your life. Performance ethic, work ethic, collaboration ethic, all these things that you are learning right now, they have done me so well as a business person. My degree is not in business. But I know how to learn, and I have a brain, and I know how to collaborate, and I know how to hire really great team members to help me out in areas that I don't know. And I know how to have a vision, and I know how to execute that vision. I know how to be flexible when the curveballs come into life, because those are going to happen. Those are things that I learned from playing the cello. Really, and they've done me so well in my life, and I hear this from so many musicians that choose other career paths. It is so important, the work that you're doing, and expressing yourself and finding your own inner world is really going to help other people find theirs as well. So thank you for listening. It's an honor to be here, and if you have any questions, feel free to send them my way. Bye.